as Georg said, I work for Instantiations. I'm the Chief Technical Officer now. I'm the Principal Smalltalk Architect. I started on Smalltalk at IBM many years ago, 1987, I guess, in Boulder, Colorado, using it as a prototyping language. I joined the IBM Smalltalk team before it was the IBM Smalltalk team. We were prototyping IDEs and progressed through until I was the team leader at IBM until the time that IBM transferred Visual Age Smalltalk to Instantiations, and I retired from IBM and went to work for Instantiations at that point, and I've been there since. So, we're going to go through company update, current release content, which I'm going to go through pretty fast, next release content, which I'm going to focus on, and futures, which I'm also going to spend some time on. And then at the end, we'll have questions and answers. If, no. Yeah. So, as I said, in 2010, the new Instantiations was instantiated, focusing exclusively on Smalltalk. That's been almost 3 years ago, and our number of users and our revenue continue to grow year to year. So, for us, Smalltalk is a success, very definitely, for our customers. Based on that, our engineering staff has grown. We've hired new permanent engineering staff as well as using contractors for additional capacity. As far as non-development activities of the company, we try and engage in university outreach, and our latest activity has been with the University of Chile, where we're sponsoring the porting of the Rosal framework, visualization framework, to VA Smalltalk. We also, as is obvious, participate at the 3 Smalltalk conferences every year. I'm always there. We have a Google group for user interaction, user-to-user interaction. And we have videos and podcasts on our website. And if you want to know things about VA Smalltalk in small snippets, I really recommend the Smalltalk for You videos that are on our website. They're done by James Robertson. They're excellent. I think we have right about 100 or more. Thank you, James. We have right about 100 of them now on the website, I believe. And they're just short 1 to 3 minute video presentations on features of VA Smalltalk. So, current release. Version 8.5.2 was made available in September of last year. It has a number of new features. One was the Monticello importer. As we've been working with open source projects, we've been using in the past something called the VA package exporter, which was something you could load in Farrowspeak and it did file outs. And, we sort of lost all notion of what this code was. It just became code you could file in. So the Monticello importer actually imports from MCZ packages. It keeps the Monticello structure, representing it in applications, sub-applications within VA Smalltalk. And pool classes are converted to our standard pool representation. So everything flows across into VA Smalltalk from an MCZ package. This also includes zip-unzip support as sort of as beta level code, because it's currently only available on Windows to support reading the contents of MCZs. A very important thing that we've done in the early days of version 8.5 was VA Assist with our code completion. And if you've been at previous conferences, you've seen Seth Berman's presentation on this, which is a pretty impressive bit of technology that he's developed. For 8.5.2, our current release, that code completion has been added to inspectors. So if you're typing engine inspector, you'll get hints on selector names. And we've also improved the browser performance when accessing repositories with high network latency. Envy is really designed for low latency networks, LAN attached systems. When you're going across the WAN, even a short distance, the performance drops off drastically. And part of that has to do with the fact that VA Assist offers you a lot of sort of assistance in terms of whether code is loaded or unloaded, and this takes the form of icon for the displays and browsers, and that takes a lot of interaction with the manager. So we've reduced the interaction, which improves the performance. For the packager, we've added image components for Seaside. Our customers who are using Seaside wanted to build runtimes based on image components, and so we've added that capability. And one of the things, and just as a small enhancement, one of the things that can interfere with building runtimes is having global in what's called unmanaged namespace. That is, global variables that don't belong to really anybody. So we added a way to query those. Real important thing we added in this release was time zone support. This is something that our customers have been asking for a number of years, and one of our developers is here, Donald Queen, developed this for version 8.5.2. And the nice thing about it is it's almost totally transparent to existing code. You just continue to use the interfaces that you have, and you will have correct daylight savings time transitions, etc. Another small enhancement was process ID, find process ID on Windows or Unix of the process running Smalltalk. This can be important if you want to kill yourself, for example. You might commit suicide. In terms of the graphics and windowing system, we had previously added support for the Windows rebar control, but it was only available programmatically or in the Window Builder add-on product. In 8.5.2, we added it to the composition editor so that you could build it. The composition editors we use could include the rebar. Thank you. Lore. We made I would say a minor enhancement in our Lore support in 8.5.2, upgrading it to 0.4.190, which was still pretty far back from the current release, but it was what we were able to do at that time. We added some web service things, and we supported Windows 8 and Ubuntu 12 as new platforms. We tried, the first release after a new operating system release comes out, we try as best as possible to commit support to that operating system release in our product, which fortunately usually this involves doing regression testing. It doesn't require code changes. Documentation, we've been shipping online documentation for a couple releases, but it was not enabled for Google search, which means that you had to actually go to the website, open the documentation, and do the searches from the documentation tool on the website. We're now enabled for Google search, and so you can search using Google, and it will bring up pages of our documentation or our FAQ as responses to that search. And I've already mentioned the Smalltalk review page on our website that has James Robertson's videos. Bug fixes, there's always bug fixes. So that's our current release. This is what, if you download today from our website, that's what you get. But the next release, this is cool. This is our planned content. Next release is not available for a couple more months. So all these things are planned. Most of them are done. But I will talk about a couple that are not quite done. So in terms of our GUI look and feel, we have a new text editor, and we have continued to improve Windows Common Controls. So the text editor is a complete redesign of our current text editor. It's built on top of Scintilla, which is an open source project that is extremely popular in the industry and has amazing capabilities that we in the next release will only begin to touch on, I think. So it leaves lots of room for expansion in the future. We provide a compatibility layer, so it's API replaceable with our current CW text widget. You just use the Scintilla editor in place of CW text, and you have the Scintilla support. We expose the full current, is that 3.3? 3.3.3. Scintilla API through Smalltalk, so you can use all the functionality of Scintilla in your own applications. In addition to that, it's used by our browsers, inspectors, and workspaces, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It's got multiple undo redo support. Previously, we only had one level undo, and it supports hardware accelerated rendering using Microsoft's direct write capability. This can give you some improved fidelity, I guess I would say, in terms of the text rendering. It is marginally faster in most cases. In some cases, it's probably even more than marginally faster. But it's not done primarily for speed improvements. It's done for the fidelity of display. We are having a presentation by Seth Furman, our VA Assist guru, who's now our scintillating new text editor guru also. Today at 2:30. I really encourage you all to come. He gives great demos. You will love what you see. The other thing we've done for the GUI was an improvement to the date time picker. We've added new attributes that we didn't previously support, including showing today, numbering the weeks, setting the first day of the week to be Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You know, different people's calendars have different first days, and being able to programmatically bold some days, indicating that there's some important information associated with that date. Okay, development tools. So here we have scintillating browsers as opposed to scintillating text editors. Some improvements in breakpoints, manager library interface, some preference settings, Monticello importer improvements that some people like, and some additional features for Glorp and Seaside. Okay. We have, as I said on one of the previous slides, we are using the base Scintilla editor capability in our browsers. It's enabled by default. You can disable it and go back to CW text. If you like that better. Hard to believe, but you might, or perish the thought if something goes wrong. It really enhances the color syntax highlighting that we've had for many years in VA Assist. And that highlighting is now available in our workspaces and inspectors, not just in the browsers. There's improvements to auto-completion in VA Assist based on Scintilla's capability. New code, we have new code assisting features like bracket and parentheses matching, call tips, I'll show you in just a second what that is, new text shortcuts, smart highlighting, which I don't think is on my chart, and lots of different new customizations to control all this. There. So, I hope you can see some of these things. So here is call tips. So if you select a variable, we'll show you its contents. Here's a breakpoint with a highlighting of the statement that you're breaking on. Here's color in the debugger, workspace pane, and also here is, I can't read it. Here, I have to go back over here so I can actually read it. This is a pop-up for code completion. So these are just some of the new elements that we get with Scintilla. And once again, I'll say, please come to Seth's presentation where he will show all of these in action. I mentioned breakpoints. We've added one-shot breakpoints, which are breakpoints that turn themselves off once they fire. As you saw in the previous chart, we use icons in the left margin to indicate breakpoints, and the one-shots will be visually distinguishable in that margin. The manager library. Envy is incredibly stable code. Thanks to the folks at OTI who developed it originally.
I think that's very polite.
Well, it's true. It is absolutely true. This code, the code that supports the manager library, has not really changed in years because it hasn't had to. But there were a couple small annoyances that people have told us about over the years. And because of some other work we're doing, it became much easier for us to rebuild VMserve manager interface, and so we've done that. One of the things that people have complained about over the years is that we always would warn people about running on Envy on multiprocessors. Because there was a bug in Windows NT that caused file corruption. And so that was put in to guard against that file corruption, and it's been there ever since. There was a way to turn it off, but you had to actually take that action to turn it off, and you would still get the warning, it just wouldn't keep you from running. So we disabled that warning. We haven't had library corruption issues since I've been working in instantiations and many years before that. So that's an indication of just how stable this code is. For Linux, there was a 2 gigabyte limit on the size of the manager based on the file system limitations at the time, the last time VMserve was built. Well, that's changed over the years. There was also a limitation on the kind of file systems you could use. Both those limitations have been removed. Now, if it's an installable Linux file system, we run with it, and we support the full 16 gigabyte manager size on Linux, just as we do on Windows. For Monticello, we made a couple small improvements. One is we used to just give you a blank suggestion for what you should name your imported code. But that's kind of silly because Monticello knows what it was named, what its version name was. So we pick that up now and suggest that as what the version name should be in VA Smalltalk. We also pick the Monticello version information up and copy it into the application notes field, which is the field associated with a Smalltalk application that changes from one version to the next. And this is useful for cross-referencing back to the source of the code. So small but useful improvements. I finally got tired of not being able to tell windows of one image from another. This has been one of my annoyances for many years. And finally, one afternoon I said, enough is enough. So we now have a way of prefixing the window title with what we call an image short name, any string that you like, or nothing if you don't like to use this. And all of the development time windows for an image will have this prefix applied. So if you're down on the Windows taskbar, you can tell one set of image windows from another. Helps to be the guy in charge. You can do stuff like this without asking anybody. Cross-development. So VA Smalltalk has this feature called cross-development, which is a way to build headless images and a way to build runtimes on one platform for deployment on a different platform. Say, build on Windows, deploy on Linux, or build on Linux, deploy on Windows. The first way is much more common than the second. And this was actually used when we had a IBM Big Iron OS, ZOS system to build images to run there. So loading code into one of these cross-development environments is based on something that's called XD features. And if you have new capability in the product that you want to use in this cross-platform environment, you can either have it loaded automatically because it's named by a feature, you just select the feature name, or you load config maps, which are kind of like Monticello packages, by hand. So we're adding these features so that there's more automatic loading in this cross-development environment. It's just another kind of small feature. Other tools. So these are kind of on the cusp, and I say that because we're getting close to code cutoff, and it's not clear to me whether this code is going to be finished in time for 8.6 or not. So this is something we'd like in 8.6, but it may not make it. Announcements, which will be familiar to Pharaoh or STIC users, and Rosal, the Agile visualization framework, which I'm sure many of the STIC, Pharaoh, and even the W people are familiar with. So announcements, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is a framework for event notification. You know, the standard Smalltalk event notification is based on symbols. So that's okay, but it doesn't really allow for attaching any context-oriented information to the event, because a symbol is just a symbol. So if you have a real object there, then you can attach context information that can be used when the event occurs. So this is a more powerful way of signaling events. Clients can subscribe and unsubscribe and handle events. The model for handling events is very similar to undo. It has to handle exceptions. So it feels very natural. We're supplying it because Rosal needs it, but you can use it too. It's certainly not restricted to usage by Rosal. And we will be evaluating whether we should switch our current event handling over to using announcements. That's a decision that hasn't been made at this point. Rosal, Alexander, are you in the room? There. Alexander and Vanessa in the back of the room are two of the three people working on this project. It's an open source project to graphically render objects using really short, expressive Smalltalk expressions. It is cool stuff. So our approach first is to get the framework working, and then once we have that done, enable some of our current tools to actually use that framework to render what we now render textually in a graphic manner. So things like profilers, complexity analyzers are all candidates for graphical representation. This is a small picture of a Rosal visualization of a class hierarchy. This happened to be the collection class hierarchy. I will once again invite you to come to Alexander and Vanessa's presentation tomorrow at 3:45 to get more details of Rosal, to see, I think, live demos. They always do live demos of Rosal, and they're fun. So please come to their presentation. We are hoping to have this in 8.6, but as I say, we still have some issues to close, so it may not make it. If it doesn't, we will say when it will be available. For web interfaces, we have made some new changes for Seaside, and for our SST servlet support. Now I don't know how to go backwards. I'm afraid to punch this again because we'll go further forward. So for Seaside, we've ported the latest version of release 107, Seaside 308, I'm sorry. And one of the things we're doing to help with kind of helping people understand what this port actually is we're indicating the version of Metacello that we base the port on. So you can go back to Squeaker Feral, load up the Metacello package, go to that version of the package, and you can see exactly what we based the port on. This was an issue that our customers have identified in the past, because 308 is sort of a nebulous thing. There's a lot of different versions of 308. And sometimes we say, well, it's 308 plus, or 1.107 minus. So now you'll have a firm definition. For servlet multi-part messages, one of the things Seaside supports is file upload, and in order to do that, you have to be able to support multi-part messages. And we didn't. Well, now we will. So we support multi-part form, multi-part mixed, multi-part messages embedded in other multi-part messages, inbound only in this release. because it's driven by a seaside file upload use case. Oh, this is an ugly chart. This shows what comes in to identify a multi-part message, and before we just ignored the multi-part part. Oh, this is even uglier. This is an inspector that shows that yes, we managed to get the content out of the message. Databases. 0.4.9 was kind of old. 7.9.1-4 is real new. It's the newest thing in the SYNCOM public repository, newest version of Glor. Well, maybe there's a newer one today, because I made these charts a couple weeks ago. And we reported that, and all the functionality in there works, to the best of our knowledge. We are also working currently on host variable support. We hope to have that in this version. And we're working on improving the error handling. Cross-product error handling is an interesting problem because each of the Smalltalk systems have a different way of dealing with exceptions. Those of you who work with VA Smalltalk know our exception handling in the past has been based on instance-based exceptions instead of class-based. Everybody else likes class-based. We like class-based too. We just didn't have them for a while. But now we have full class-based exception support, and they are, as best we know, polymorphic with instance-based. So you can use on-do with instance-based exceptions, and you can use when-do with class-based exceptions, and it all works. Installation. Gosh, one of our issues in the past has been our installer. It seems like kind of a simple thing, but it's the very first part of VA Smalltalk that any user sees. And the installer we had was built in VA Smalltalk about 19 years ago. Times have moved on. It wasn't very pretty. It did not deal with the requirements of user access control in Windows since Windows Vista. And so it was an annoyance at best. We have solved that problem by converting to using an install shield-based installer. So we have a very standard-looking install process. We have also repackaged our distributions into one code package and one documentation package. We found that many of our users, perhaps even most of our users, use the documentation that's on our website, which is, at the time we ship, identical to the documentation we ship, but can be updated between releases, obviously, because we have control over it. And so it's often more current than what we ship in the install packages. So we've swapped it around, and we now have a code install that will install both the client and the manager, or just the client, or just the manager, and a documentation package that installs just the documentation. All our installs are UAC compliant, user access control compliant on Windows. And we initially install the read-only files, same place we used to. But the read-write files are installed in different locations. The manager goes in a common user common area, and the other read-write files, like the image, go in the user data area. And that install is not done by the installer, but rather by a new tool we created called environments. So, one issue in the past has been that when you install via Smalltalk, it was sort of an install for a single user, because everything, the shortcuts and everything were associated with whoever installed it. And if you're on a multi-user system like a Windows 2000X server, you really wanted an install for all users, optionally. And so we've done that. So the base install in the Windows startup menu here, you can see there's VA Smalltalk environments, which is the only thing that shows up there. That used to be VA Smalltalk development. So when you go to environments, before I go there, we have an uninstaller also to complement the install. And the uninstaller actually will normally leave the manager file, because that's something that you may have not tried. You don't necessarily want to destroy it. So you have to specifically request that the manager file be deleted. There's also a repair capability that can reinstall the product or just replace the manager. We're doing a Unix install package in RPM format, which means it can be a headless install, something people have asked for. We haven't decided exactly what we're going to do for Solaris. This is also something that's on the cusp. It may not be in 8.6, in which case for Unix we would have the current installer, but it would be then in the next release. Okay, now I can talk about environments. So we have this tool which will create and manage development environments. It is available on all platforms, and it creates the working directory, initially containing just the image and the INI, which is a runtime customization file. It has interfaces to start the image, modify settings, view the working directory where the image was placed, get a fresh copy of the image if you have managed to do something that makes the image unusable, and create a shortcut on the desktop so that you can have quick access to a particular development environment. These are a couple screen captures. So this is creating a GORP development environment. We have two different sort of standard image contents, basic and full. Basic is what you use if you're not interested in the composition editor, and it gives you a much smaller image. And as you can see on the right one, in this case, we've installed several different development environments, and you can start an image using the sort of right arrow icon, and the other icons allow you to customize the startup information, to browse the working directory, to create shortcuts on the desktop, and to delete that image completely. New platform, Ubuntu. Okay, that's everything that's planned for 8.6, and we hope that all of that will be in. As I said, announcements for Solid Unix install are still on the cusp. Looking to the future, as those of you who have seen my presentations before, we generally release twice a year. And the current content information on our next release and all previous releases is available on our website. So you can always see what we're doing, what we plan to do. So in terms of what we're looking at, Unicode support, the things that are highlighted here are the things that are kind of on our hot list. Unicode support is on our hot list. I'm going to explain about that and continuation support in just a second when I get to another chart. Those of you who've seen this presentation before know that we had a project with the Hasso-Plattner Institute in Potsdam, Germany to do a GTK implementation for our Linux environment. We have some ongoing work based on the output from that project, but it is, I will say, it's been set to the side for some other work we're doing that I'll tell you about in just a second. It's also, we're also looking at icon and image support enhancement very strongly. I support PNG files to allow us to build better looking icons for our product. Zip file support's in beta stage. We're going to make it fully supported. We're looking at simple database. We've had a lot of requests for that. TCP/IP version 6, since the IP version 4 address space is shot. There are no more. OpenSSL wrappers. We currently have a subset of OpenSSL supported that we want full support. And, incremental garbage collection and 64-bit Smalltalk. Look at that. We have a project that's been going on for almost a year to implement 64-bit Smalltalk. It's one reason GDK's support has been pushed to the side, because we've got the people who are working on GTK working on this instead. We're making very good progress. We don't have an announcement date for availability, but I can say that seeing we're a year into the project with several people involved in doing the implementation, that it's not going to be 5 years from now. We have ideas in external interfacing and improvements to our collection library, and anything that anybody would like to suggest. Suzanne.
I just wanted to take 5 minutes.
Yeah. Because this is my last chart. Even with 10 minutes left. How to get VA Smalltalk. You can get it for free. You can download an evaluation copy. You can buy it if you like that better. We occasionally make development builds available, and we announce that in the Google group when that happens. We did one development build available. We made one development build available for 8.6, which was a beta of the Windows installer, so we could get some early feedback. You can be a committer on an open source project, not necessarily one that we're involved with, but any open source project. Or you can work for an educational institution. You can be an academician, and we will provide academic licenses. Here's our contact information. Write to us if you have questions, if you have problems, if you want to buy the product, if you want to download the product as an evaluation version. We'll be happy to provide you that capability. Okay, questions? I will be here through the end of the conference and past a little bit. So if you have questions, you can always catch me at a break. Thank you very much.